Right, so we're connecting now.
Hi, everyone. I am going to be moderating this panel. My name is Estelle Ohayon. I'm the CEO of NFT BAZL, and I'd like to introduce my guests on the panel today. We have Maria Tokareva. Maria, if you want to say a few words about yourself.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for having me. Thank you so much, GDA Capital. I'm really excited to be here. I've been an artist for a really long time based in Miami, and I've been slowly but surely becoming an NFT artist now. I launched an NFT collection last year, and we are partnering with Magic Eden to launch a second collection now. So, and this is the girls that I draft.
Very cool.
Thank you, thank you.
Dante Venafro, I'm going to give you the stage for a minute to introduce yourself.
Yeah, nice to meet you all. My name is Dante. I'm a partner at Alpha Sigma Fund, and we invest across the blockchain space. We launched Blockchain Moon Acquisition Corp, and I started investing in a lot of the games, so like Splinterlands, Gala games, and I wanted to make an Inferno based on Dante Alighieri's Divine Comedy, and we have merch and physical merch and different fashion collaborations that we're happy to talk about during the panel. And really happy to be here. Thank you, GDA Capital.
Amazing. Enara Nazarova, would you like to introduce yourself?
Of course, thank you. It's so great to be spending this panel talking to such a contrasting group of people, organizers, artists, also people within the fashion industry. So I, by profession, am a marketer, and I have had a history, I guess, entrepreneurial history of building digital products. Now I've transitioned into building products in Web3. Before getting into tech, I actually spent about 10 years as a performer. So I have a passion for telling stories and connecting with audiences through storytelling. Visual communication has been a very important theme in my life and in the work that I do. So now that I've transitioned to digital fashion, my goal is to help the fashion industry to really see the full and embrace the full potential of immersive technology so that people can better express themselves in the metaverse. Today, I spend my time doing two things primarily, growing the Digital Fashion Art Club, which is a community for digital fashion enthusiasts, and also building a product called ARMOAR, which is a platform for creation of generative textures that allows fans to incubate art alongside their favorite artists. So I'm very excited to get into this conversation with you.
Wow, you're so passionate. We love that. Actually, you know what? Maybe we should just dive into the topic that you're so passionate about. We would love to hear your thoughts about the changing nature of the gaming landscape and why there is room now for fashion in this conversation.
Sure. So gaming is quite interesting because if we look at the ecosystem that gaming was able to build, it has given us a way to communicate ourselves and our essence through an avatar. And whenever we look at historical, I guess, value of or appearance of avatars, we've been using tokens and avatars to represent ourselves within gaming context for as long as games have existed, whether that means playing chess and using chess pieces or being in Second Life or even The Sims. So I was thinking about the panel today to kind of better understand the overlap between fashion and gaming. And I started to notice that a lot of the NFT series that have been released, I guess like starting with Larva Labs, CryptoPunks, and so on, they are kind of like the initial tribes that we're going to populate the metaverse with. We're already starting to build out communities through just the 2D version of these assets. And then at some point, they're going to be 3D versions and they will all need something to wear. So that's where kind of digital fashion starts to fit in within the gaming and avatar context. And I have had a history producing music and tech festivals, and I love seeing how audiences, you know, follow the communities that they really appreciate. If you, for example, love Florence and the Machine, you probably really love exploring more of the meaning behind her lyrics and maybe even some poetry. But whenever the work is distributed, if you look at the way fans and artists have historically communicated, now that we have the background of avatars and NFT technology and now digital fashion as a precedent, creators very rarely actually make money directly from their fan base. Most fans almost never get compensated for any type of work that they do to actually help the creator get to their success. So there's now a need for both parties to reach more creative freedom. So when we look at the opportunity that avatars present and NFTs being able to dress them, there is a completely new marketplace that's opened up for both virtual goods as well as physical goods that can develop digital twins. So I work at the intersection of communicating this to artists who can then expand their work into that space, and also to fans who can now buy assets that don't necessarily have to depreciate over time the way our physical clothes do. So we can, of course, dive into that later, but I'm very excited to also hear about Maria, your work as a traditional artist transitioning to that space as well.
Oh, thank you so
Exactly.
much. It's been really interesting because when I started painting, I moved it to Miami. I went to Wynwood. Everybody was painting the walls, and like I see how much support it has from the community, from everyone. So I decided to okay, I'm gonna try it. And one of the things that I first started to paint on was clothes. So I would take hoodies and t-shirts and I would just splash some paint on it, put some words. Like one of the things that I like to bring to this world, I would say, is the saying best day ever, that because we can all have the best day ever if we really choose to think about it this way. If you wake up and you're like, okay, I'm gonna say that today is gonna be my best day ever, your brain automatically takes all the good moments of your day, all those special little things that sometimes we take for granted, and builds the memory that at the end of the day you're gonna be like, okay, you know what, it was actually a really amazing day. Let's see if tomorrow can be even better. So I put this phrase everywhere, and I see that people start to kind of click with it, and they wear the garments and they feel like they are the piece of the art. Because when you have a painting, it's like, yeah, it's right there, it's hanging on, you can see it, but there's not a lot of ways to interact with a painting unless you take a picture, you tweet it, whatever. But wearing it is a whole different experience. So it's been one of those things that when I heard about NFTs and I clicked the two of them together, for me it was eye opening how the instant that you can bring something to the digital world, you can communicate that to everyone globally in an instant. You don't have to, you're not limited to space and time, a country. It's to me, it's like the possibility to reach so many people at the same time was fantastic. And it took me a couple of years, but it really, like, now I'm launching the second collection, I can see that this is where the world is going. This is NFTs as a way for people to really massively adopt the technology and kind of like see themselves into Web3 now.
Very cool and very true. Honestly, I do believe in positive thinking, and the way you speak to yourself is the way you're going to perceive the world during your day, and how much you accomplish is also based on that. How do you feel about everything that Enara and Maria just said, Dante?
It actually opened my mind. I feel like I wasn't thinking as big as them, but like for instance, Inferno kind of takes place, you think Renaissance period, knights with armor, right? So how will I get contemporary fashion to collaborate in a different time period? But also when we make our merchandise, which is contemporary, right? Like Inferno hoodies and shirts, how can I get those into other metaverses? So if you're playing a different game, you can still represent Inferno in those. But I did not go far enough to think, what if you let people make their own clothes digitally in the game? So that's actually so cool, and would love to dive into that more with you. But yeah, just one thing that's good about picking the Divine Comedy is that Italians are in love with it because it's an Italian story. And I cannot tell you, and I can't announce it yet, but like there's big Italian brands that want to come into video games. And so I'm open minded. Like, do we make an armor set for Best Day Ever, which is typically shirts? Does that make sense? Or is it that the Inferno hoodie collaborates with the Best Day Ever hoodie, and we put that collab hoodie out into a different video game that makes sense for the. So there's all these different ways to go about it, and I'm still learning. Not trying to.
I think you should make a corset for Kim Kardashian.
Right? Okay. Whatever you say, I'll do anything you want.
Listen, I think it would be really cool. She'd probably love that. I wanted to get into a little bit of a discussion about the biggest challenges that are facing today luxury brand items, high value assets, art, collectibles, and the looming issue of authenticity. The market of luxury goods is obviously flooded with fakes, which poses a real challenge for luxury market brands. Are NFTs and blockchain technology a solution for this ongoing problem? And will the blockchain eliminate its primary concerns and present viable solutions? I would love to hear what you guys think. Maria, do you want to take lead?
Yes, definitely. So one of the things that I've seen a lot in the NFT space is the rugs, right? So a lot of people are getting rug. That's because anybody can take a collection, put it out there. Not everybody knows who is behind the project, and people know, most of them, they buy with this mentality of flipping, right? So like, I just buy it, I will flip it for point 0.2 or 2 times extra, and that's it. And they do that a lot. But when you know who is behind the product, when you know who's behind the NFT collection, the team of the people who created it, it creates a more secure way. It's more, it's like when you know who the person is, you can trust them more. So one of the things that I personally believe with our project is we're very transparent. We like to put ourselves out there, show our face, have that access for people to ask us questions, anything, to see like what our life goes with. And so definitely for brands is a way to, I bought these socks from James Preston, I think, and it came with an NFT. So if I go and I scan the code of the socks, it will tell me this is an original sock from this collection. And it's incredible because, of course, the Chinese market, or a lot of people out there, they like to take the brand, put it on any t-shirt and sell it. And this is a way to really make sure that you are buying something from the people who are creating it.
So actually, at NFT BAZL, we have partnered up with a company that creates NFT chips. So currently what we do is we take these NFT chips and we embed them into the physical art, on the back of the physical art. So forever that piece can be authenticated through that chip. So all you have to do is scan the art, and it'll show you who was the artist, what year it was produced, what was the method, where it was purchased, and so forth. So I was actually thinking, what if we could present NFT chips to, for example, LVMH and high-value luxury brands like Louis Vuitton, Hermès, Chanel, and they could embed those chips in their physical handbags or clothing or jewelry, to never have the questions arise whether this item is authentic. Is this Birkin a real Birkin, or is it a fake? So forever that chip is embedded inside the item to allow for blockchain technology to authenticate a physical piece of luxury goods. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it. Enara?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts about fashion. Like, I come from a world where I have seen both the underbelly of the business and how things operate, as well as just have an intrinsic love for clothing. And somebody gave me an advice on how to fix something that's broken, is that you don't stop smoking, you start running, or something like that. So instead of trying to convince the fashion industry to like abandon certain practices, it's about showcasing and trying to motivate the entire industry to see other opportunities that can address the problem. So the digital fashion, I think, as a space is quite challenging, especially for brands that are now being asked to collaborate, to open up their IP, and how do you exactly build a cohesive brand in the virtual space? So I do think that transitioning from current Web 2 brand landscape to Web 3 is definitely not a one-size-fits-all solution. When we talk about authentication, luxury brands, of course, have to face the problem of counterfeits. So that's where the blockchain solution can almost become a digital passport for you to be able to validate certain goods. But beyond just that function, like, what else can brands do to layer on the value for the customer? So I think this may be like a bit of an unpopular opinion, but I do think that brands have been a bit selfish in the last couple of years in terms of in the way that mass marketing has communicated them. So I do think this is the unselfish pursuit of the brand to be able to be about something more than just itself. Like, how can you better serve the customer? How can the customer enjoy and love your brand cross generationally, where you know will pass something down to your kids, either because it has an NFT that still continues to unlock a really interesting experience. So tomorrow's brands, I think, are expected to also act at their level of influence, because when we mention the name Hermes and Louis Vuitton, and like what does that mean? Like, what can you do to become a leader in a space and not just exercise your power or motivate people to buy more things? So I think about NFTs finally are introducing these concepts of building community around your product, serving your customer, being able to bring your brand into digital spaces. There's a bit of a dichotomy where if you were to create digital twins of your physical assets and somebody purchases let's say it's a Birkin bag that comes with an NFT, what happens when you want to resell the product and you separate the NFT from the bag? And like, can that process somehow be, tampered with? So the ingenuity of brands that are starting to go through this process now, whether it be Stella McCartney or Gucci or Balenciaga, I think the learning experiences are going to also show us what is possible for those brands. And it's really amazing to see them taking these steps forward.
Dante, how do you feel about this as an Italian?
As an Italian, no, I'm just kidding. No, I think I read about LVMH started a consortium called Aura with Prada and a few other brands to do something very similar, like back in 2019. And then I remember, like before Virgil passed, the article came out about his DAO idea called Skyscraper. And I actually recently met a group that is the technology provider behind the Super Plastic and Gucci collab.
Right.
They've been doing all these collabs, and they have a way of bundling on Shopify the NFT that maybe represents more of your avatar with the promise of physical merch delivery. Like she mentioned, I don't know what happens if someone was to resell the merch and what would happen with the avatar, but I do know, at least on the digital side, if you were to trade an NFT, you can likely withdraw the permission. You can't wear a Louis Vuitton shirt in the metaverse anymore because you sold your NFT that represents it. But on the physical side, yeah, I don't know how to prevent the reselling problem. But yeah, I think it's all very inspiring.
It is definitely inspiring. I was thinking buyers are willing to spend a fair amount on goods associated with luxury brands, whether it's a symbol of status or a sense of belonging to a top tier segment. Ultimately, it gives a sense of belonging to the buyer that he doesn't have in his real life, and a social status that he clearly adheres to. Buyers are buying the value and lifestyle associated with brand quality. Do you agree, Dante?
Oh, of course. Yeah, I mean, before NFTs, why did someone go buy a watch? Why did they go buy, luxury clothes? I think it's because they're communicating, right, through their purchases, and they want to be part of this group. You dress like that group. You want to be part of a different kind of group. You'll dress and assimilate to what that looks like. And I think it just comes down to human nature, right? That's just like the Maslow hierarchy of needs. You want to always try to either distinguish yourself or find a sense of belonging. And so I think it'll never stop. Web3 will have the same thing. People will buy very expensive NFTs if it represents that they're in the in crowd, they're the cool kids. It'll never stop.
But isn't this, don't you guys think that this is really a social parallel or like a mirror world to what everyone sees on social media, these idealistic dream worlds that everyone's living, and they're happy every day and they look so flawless and they're lounging on a beach? I mean, it's really a reflection of people wanting to achieve the unattainable, and how much are they willing to pay to get it, whether it's in the metaverse or in the real world. It's this unattainable dream that everybody wants to be part of, and none of it is really real.
I have something to say about this. So a lot of people, especially in the fashion industry, is like a very, very close community. We have the main brands, we have the influencers or the movie stars, the people who sit in the front row always. So it's always been very close, and it's always they always have had the power to do this. But going into the metaverse, I've been reading a lot of like Balenciaga launching their first fashion show in the metaverse. They have this technology now with 360 cameras where they can create the avatar that looks exactly like you, that has, you know, your weight, your everything, all your measurements. They can, you can have the NFT and they can make the design for you with your own measurements. But now there is, for example, back in the days, if you couldn't afford to fly to Paris to go to Fashion Week, you know, you could not go. But now, and it's again about status, but still now much more people have access to a computer. And I'm sure like the first few years is going to be all these free events because, you know, the metaverse wants the people to be in there. So at the
Right.
beginning, it's like with Twitter. At the beginning, everything was for free, and now they figure out, okay, we have this community of people. Now we can charge for a premium, and we can give them some extra benefits. I feel like that's the continuation. That's what's going to happen in the metaverse. Like right now, everybody has access to it. Everything is free. Maybe you cannot sit in the front row of the Balenciaga fashion show, but you can at least be there and you can see what's going on.
Yeah. Maria, I wanted to ask you how you felt about digital fashion tying into digital identity as a form of expression and further allowing the imagination and artistic freedoms that the physical world inherently has set boundaries for. Do you agree?
I think this is one of the most amazing things that could have happened. Growing up, I always wanted to be a fashion designer. That was my dream. And my mom was like, there is a lot of fashion designers out there. It's going to be so hard for you. Just like go to business school. And I did for like 1 month. And then I kind of like decided that's not going to be my thing. But anything that I imagined back in the days, I would think like, wow, it's gonna take me years to like find out how to build the structure of the designs that I want to create because physically it's not possible. But with the years, I've seen technology evolve that now you can create anything you want. There is no limit of materials, there is no limit of shapes, there is no limit for absolutely anything. And that's one of the things is like we are experiencing the real world, but it's 100 times enhanced with anything that we can imagine. We can
Exactly.
make ourselves look pink.
And Nara, how do you feel about this?
I mean, as any new industry that's developing, you always are faced with both challenges and opportunities. If I were to break up the challenges into three categories as they touch a business, a designer, or an investor, if you're a business and you're trying to break into a niche emerging market to meet sustainable monthly recurring revenue and those targets, I think is going to be your goal. And that is the volatility and the uncertainty that comes with pivoting or entering a completely new space. If you're a designer and you're leaving right now, whether it's Parsons or University College of London or a top tier fashion university, there's still very, very few, if any, technical skill sets that are being taught, whether it's coding, 3D, data science, AI. All of those skills can advance the industry forward, and it really does fall on the shoulders of the designer to kind of embrace teaching themselves or even learning on the job. If you're an investor and you're hearing all the buzz around metaverse, digital fashion, all these words being thrown around, I appreciate people's skepticism because usually it is addressing profitability, but also feasibility of a specific market. Like what we just discussed now, what does it mean to be able to try to solve the counterfeit problem while also facing the resale issue and kind of separating the product from the NFT?
Right.
Those are all valid questions and challenges, but I think when we look at opportunities, there's more and more reasons to kind of commit to try to solve these problems. Number one, curbing environmental impact. I mean, I know when we talk about NFTs or the space, like environmental impact comes up in different contexts, whether it's like efficiency of blockchains or even the fashion industry at large. But I do think the movement to materialize and to digitize is at large going to have a very positive impact on the supply chains and all of the assets that we own in our real life. Being ahead of the curve is also really important, where you're starting to pay attention to a trend. You start to ask yourself question, what's my role in this business? How is my audience developing and changing? Where do I find them? Where are they migrating to? Also understanding your consumer better, because you can pay some trend forecasting agency and ask them to give you like an overall broadcasting report of like what they think is going to be the next thing. But that's again reading the tea leaves and trying to predict something that's not exactly real, but you can have actual data of how your audience is interacting with your virtual assets, whether they're replicas of your physical ones or something completely new. Does it give you opportunity to collaborate with new talent? Can you study the way that these digital assets move across different platforms? There's so much that I think is at stake in terms of building more sustainable businesses. And in my mind, a sustainable business is good business because you have less places where your company is bleeding money. You are resonating with the cultural context. There's a lot of positives that I think that come with that. So I'm very pro digital fashion, but also love talking to skeptics and understanding also the cost of us stepping into the space. And Estelle, I actually would love to ask you what you think about the idea that we are, it is very easy to craft the perfect world that has no problems, that is this same mirror that we're trying to actually, finally step away from, that Instagram has created. Like, where do you see the opportunities there and also the challenges?
The opportunities are obviously vast. I mean, there's so much that we could do with this ulterior world. I think the challenges are that it's disillusioned in my mind. The entire concept of what we're creating is something that people struggle with in their daily lives. So it's an escape in a sense. And I always look at the social implications and the social sources. How did this come about? Usually the source is a social source. And I think COVID obviously contributed to that tremendously because people needed an escape. People needed to have something that was actually a real life, something that was happening. It was not happening in the real life. So we had to recreate something that was more in the metaverse. And all NFTs and the metaverse, all this exploded during COVID because it was a serious struggle for people globally, and everybody was looking for an outlet. I guess people had a lot of time on their hands as well to develop ideas and things that they normally might not have the time to do if they have full-time jobs. So if you're sitting at home and you're quarantined, obviously your imagination can grow wild and you can create whatever you want to create. But I think that there's, for example, NFT BAZL has a gallery in Decentraland. We add segments of other businesses that we're involved in. For example, the SLS features our NFT. So we're adding another building that will be the SLS part of our gallery. So you can build on what you have. Where's the limit? Where's the cap? Are people going to be completely asleep in their physical world and only living through their digital?
Oh yeah, no, the cap doesn't end. We're gonna be
It doesn't
Neuralink to the cloud in a matrix pod.
Exactly.
Oh my God, that was what I was gonna say, that the latest
We're gonna
movie
be
literally talks about this. Like, these machines are powered by human emotions, whether it's happiness or sadness. They have, like, it's still energy that they're
we're gonna be
feeding.
getting farmed like this. Just like
People are going to date in the metaverse. They're never going to meet in person. So their clones are going to be dating each other. They're never going to know what they look like. And
the catfish in the metaverse.
Wait, but that's already
The
happening.
population is gonna stop growing because people are just gonna have babies in the metaverse.
Yeah, I don't need to have real kids. It's
Just
fine.
surrogate.
It's too much work in the real life. Let's just pop a baby in the metaverse.
Exactly. I was actually going to ask you, Dante, one last question. Digital fashion may be an outlet to create your ulterior self and grow to create your own persona. Do you think digital fashion can blur the lines between fantasy and reality, which is exactly what we're talking about? The line has been so blurred. Do you think people are just going to lose themselves altogether?
I think that's kind of like the dystopian nightmare outcome that's been predicted for so long over so many movies. I think there's potentially that's the difference between the centralized metaverse. We could have a decentralized metaverse that avoids that dystopian outcome, hopefully. And then kind of touching on what a lot of you said on sustainability, and inclusion, maybe instead of I have the Balenciaga NFT, haha, you don't, and being exclusive, there's a way to make it inclusive, right? Instead of having the fur coat because I killed animals, a digital fur coat didn't hurt anyone, and yeah, just trying to like not repeat the same Web 2 mistakes when we go into Web 3 would be great. But
I actually don't think that it's very inclusive. I used to think that NFTs were really the whole emergence of the NFT market was the emergence of social inclusiveness and social equality and people having a voice. And it kind of gave, you know, the guy who pumped gas at a gas station suddenly a voice. And the guy who was delivering your Instacart food had a voice. Everyone had a voice, but I'm not sure, and I don't know how you guys feel about this, because I've heard that if you want to attend, for example, Balenciaga fashion show in the metaverse, you still need to be a special VIP. So where's equality there?
I think we always repeat the same mistakes. I mean, history repeats itself. Just because the technology is new, it doesn't mean that it inherently challenges the power structures that are producing it. So just because NFTs kind of offer us a new way of doing something, if the reason that it's being done is the exact same, I think these things will just start to mirror each other. But I do think that there is a bit of a punk rock, really rebellious aesthetic when it comes, not necessarily, but even like a feeling that surrounds Web3 in terms of developers, people that are exiting from FANG companies, people that are tired of all of these very front row experiences and want to say that fashion may have had origins of being like a newsletter for the rich people that live in New York to find out what they're going to wear to their next cotillion, but that's not the case anymore. Like fashion has completely, it's now part of our daily lives. It is part of our identity beyond function. If you look at pictures from like, let's say like even 1920s, people look like they dress in the same stuff. It's kind of like the same suit. It's kind of the same dress. There was a homogeny of staying the same and part of the community and a collective in a society. Now with as many immigrants as there are in America, even all around the world, there's a lot more desire for fashion to service completely different purposes. And the question I think is very important that you're asking, Estelle, especially from your vantage point of somebody who produces and presents a platform for these types of conversations, is actually asking the builders, what are we building all this stuff for and who for? Because there is a lot of apocalyptic movies and zombies and this kind of like dystopian prediction or like look towards the future where humanity kind of fails and like does not raise up to its challenges. But I think always in contrast to that worldview, there is the positive movement. There's one that's called solar punk that I've recently been reading up about, which is not against, but it's a contrast to steampunk and cyberpunk, these like dark Blade Runner like dystopias that basically say it is possible to use technology for the better, but it takes a lot of active effort to encapsulate these use cases and ask Balenciaga to do a different show, to ask Roblox to host different communities and negotiate those contracts, those opportunities for these things to just show up differently. Because, again, in considering if things remain unchanged, I think we very much can look just towards social media and see the type of ecosystem we can exist in. But if we are a lot more conscious about how we want things to be different, we definitely hold the keys and the power to make those changes.
I was going to say, I feel that, there is an oligarchy that controls the top tier in the physical world. Is it going
Haven't
to
there always been one?
Sorry?
There's always one in every business.
And is it going to mirror itself in the metaverse? Because I think it really is. It's not going away.
I have a theory about this. So back in the days, we used to exist with a pyramid structure where somebody was at the top and then everybody else at the bottom. In my experience with like coming into the NFT community, I've seen so much camaraderie. So for example, these Twitter spaces, you can go on a Twitter space and right now it's like from marketing to how to build your collection, interacting with other art, all these different topics. And the community itself of the people who have knowledge, who have done big projects already, they are there just giving their time for free to teach other people that want to be building different things in the metaverse. They're there and they're always saying like there is no dumb question that you can ask, like literally
Right.
anybody who joins, they're always like very kind, I would say. And that has been my experience with this, that from one person. So I would like to flip this triangle and I call it the uptangle. So from from the bottom, from one person, like all this knowledge, all this light, all this possibility goes and spreads to more people. So instead of like having a big chain in the bottom, we have from one people kind of like a cone where a lot of people get to be seen, get to be heard, get to experience life a little bit more better, in my experience. But I
I
think
mean,
that,
that's the ideal situation, isn't it,
but
Dante?
it's always gonna have like, the dark and the light. It's
Yeah.
always gonna be.
You know
Oh,
what's funny? That's what Inferno's about, right? It's about the dark versus the light. And I kind of like how you're right. It goes from triangle to, I usually thought of a circle, like from triangle to a circle. And right now, I think there's not an oligarchy yet, but just like all things, it starts off pure and live long enough as the hero, you can become the villain later, right?
Right. Right.
And I think it's gonna come in. Anything pure and good will get attacked by something dark, just because that's
Yeah.
what happens. And then I know that I'm lucky enough to be here with you ladies, but like the male ego, men will always compete, fight over power, try to create a structure where one is more powerful than the others. And I haven't figured out how to stop that yet. And it's gonna, even if there's a Web 4, a Web 5, how do you change the hearts of men and women? You know what I mean?
It's their thinking. I think it's everyone's role here, and at this whole summit, to make sure that inclusiveness isn't dictated by status, and that talent can come from any angle, to be honest.
I think I just love that we're talking about this for this conversation under this theme, because this is the underlying purpose of why we have this new technology enter our mind share. Like everybody's thinking about it. So I do think this is an opportunity to influence how people will end up using it. And the similar example that you gave, Maria and Dante, like that transition from a triangle to a circle represents cycles and nature and is closer to the way that things operate in the natural world. And I always look towards systems that exist in nature as the most advanced technological system, because it's gone through so many cycles. It is incredibly resilient to change and has sustained life for many, many generations. So there's a reason. There's a quote that by Benjamin Franklin, like when he talked about democracy, he said, a country can stay a democracy only if people can keep it, because it is an active process of showing up to the voting booth, to actually participating, to being present in the community. And the reason that triangular structures are so popular is because you offload the responsibility of the individual to one person making all the decisions for you. And what's different, I think, about NFTs is that it is giving us an opportunity, whether it's a DAO structure or utilizing crypto as just a baseline for these types of projects, is that it makes the community be active. It is not about more and how many followers, how many thousands of followers, it's how the quality of the community and the connections that are within it. So it goes from triangles and a hierarchical worldview to a networked worldview, which relies on the individuality and ingenuity of people within your collective to make these decisions. So there's almost like a mechanism to start to engineer out the human error or the human ego, and seeing if you can actually get the project to the finish line, which usually will probably fall under the manifesto or even the goal of the project. So I do think that just the intrinsic structure of what NFTs can enable us to do will help us mitigate a lot of these intrinsically human risks. So I would love to see fashion to be under this type of pressure to change and to open up, because it, yes, makes a lot of business sense, but also culturally, that's exactly what people want.
I know, and to be honest, I mean, this is the times that we live in right now. Everybody's trying to gain their voice, and everyone's trying to join some sort of community. And I think that, in the blockchain and the crypto world, the community, the sense of community is so big, and you really feel it when you go to these events. And when I travel, and we have 1,200 people attending, and everybody knows each other, which is crazy. Like, you could be in Dubai, in Miami, New York, everyone knows each other. So this sense of community has to carry on, and I think everyone has a responsibility, if they feel it socially, to make sure that no one is excluded and we don't end up in the same model that we've had for the last, I don't know how many years, that everybody gets a chance. And there's so much talent out there that would normally never get a voice to even be heard, right? Anyways, I think is Tali telling us to end? I'm not
We have
really
a
sure.
5 minute mark, and I think I just saw a question that somebody,
Oh,
that Mika
okay.
Larha from, she asks, will the metaverse NFT maintain popularity now that people are going back to a normal post COVID life?
I think so.
Oh yeah, for
It will
sure.
stay. It will stay. It will just evolve into, people are, I feel like people are gonna start, they already are, just getting rid of their real life jobs and seeing how they can create or participate from the metaverse, because there's a lot of games out there that pay people just to play, for example.
How many people do you hear of on a daily basis who quit their physical jobs to follow their dreams? I don't think there was at any time period in history where we've seen an influx like this. It's crazy. Everyone just decided, you know what? Life's too short. I want to follow my dreams. I don't want to do this 9 to 5 thing.
Exactly, because I feel like this is the era where dreams come true, because people decide to believe in themselves and go out there, do what you love, do what they love, and it's beautiful. I'm excited to see what's the future.
But I also think it's interesting how in almost every industry, whenever whether it's creator economy or whatever insert word economy, I think like the financialization of people's hobbies was quite dangerous, because like hobbies is what you just like sometimes do because you genuinely care about it. So I think NFTs became an outlet for people to showcase their work to the world. But as soon as NFTs became tradable and monetizable, people kind of started to lose themselves a little bit in the process. So being able to create communities for people to continue share their stories, have like make sure that's the story and the reason why somebody's creating is still at the forefront, and like the part of the gallery experience, part of the Twitter communities where people are just giving back for the reasons of maintaining that, I think is going to be key to maintaining vibrancy of the NFT space and not having it be completely overtaken by opportunists, which will always be there. But Estelle, also thank you for doing such an amazing job moderating our panel.
I think Dante wanted to say a couple of words. I didn't want to
Yes,
cut him
go
off.
for it.
Oh no, yeah, Estelle, thank you so much for moderating and having me. And yeah, I agree with her. Like, there's really two options in life, and it's love or fear, right? And obviously, there's greed. There's the seven deadly sins, right? Like, you
Of
can't
course.
avoid it. But if we could just keep choosing love more
Yes.
often than fear, we'll probably have a good outcome.
We'll have a better world. Thank you so much, guys. This was such a pleasure. I really enjoyed listening to you, honestly.
Thank you so
Likewise.
much. Thank you for
Thank you,
everything. I hope you
everyone.
guys have the best day ever.
Have